Hello, how are you today? We are so glad to see you. We know, each of us knows, that every article we write requires a fresh idea. But did you know that that doesn't necessarily mean a different idea for each article? How can that be true and you remain ethical? We're going to show you today in the brainstorming session with article writing expert Linda Gilden. We're so glad you're here. I'm Patricia Durgan, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists. This month, we've extended our summit from a regular summit of 20 experts with 20 days to 25. This is the second day of our bonus week. We're so tickled to have you join us. This is episode number 232, Where to Get Article Ideas and Then What to Do with Them, with author and conference director Linda Gilden. Hello, Linda. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, as I understand it, you've written over 1,000 articles, correct?
I have.
Okay, so that just sort of blows my mind right off the bat.
I just quit counting at 1,000. I figured we'd just go with over 1,000.
Now, we said in our email today that you started writing articles when your children were really small, and you wedged your writing in between their lunch and their nap and other duties that you had with them. How long ago was that?
Oh, you're really going to make me tell?
Okay, let's just say over 30 years.
That was in 1990. That was a long time ago. And, but I knew I wanted to write, and I had already spent 15 years not writing because of the discouragement of a college professor. Mm-hmm. And because of my personality, even though her words were not terrible on my paper, they were bad enough the way I perceived them and internalized them that I just quit. I gave it up, and I said, Lord, if you want me to write, somebody else is going to have to help me find value in what I'm doing, because she just absolutely said it was no good. And after about 15 years, my husband did encourage me to start writing. But you're right, my children were small at that point, and they needed me. And unfortunately, they didn't take long naps. And so I wrote all day in my head. And just when I had a chance, I would sit down at my word processor. There we go. And that get out as much as I could. And then I'd write some more during the day until they went to bed at night. And then I'd finish what I did. So, yes, you can write despite your circumstances. You may not have all day to write like I do now. I love that I can just sit and write, and if I want to do nothing else, I can do it in my pajamas. I can go to bed that night without having ever changed and get up the next morning and start all over, and it's great. But most people can't do that. And so I encourage everybody that's listening to, whatever your circumstances, find that little snatch of time for yourself that you can write. It might be not more than 30 minutes a day. It might be a very small amount of time in the beginning, but that will grow. And as your passion grows and as your story just comes out as you're writing, you'll just get to where you can't. I mean, I walk by my computer and it goes just like this. It's like, come here. And it just won't let me walk by. I have to be doing something with words almost all the time. And so that's kind of my story.
When we start, even when there's not very much momentum, over time, little by little by little, not only does our momentum grow, but we've got a rhythm, don't we?
We do. We get into the rhythm, and I think another thing that we also do is we become more aware of God's calling as writers to us. And as we define that and make that more secure, we also are able to write more. We're able to be more productive when we do write. And so that's really important, because in those early days when you have little children, or when you have a full-time job, or maybe 2 part-time jobs or whatever, it's really difficult to find that chunk of time. And so you need to be writing in your head all the time. And then when you have that little snatch, you can't sit there and go, well, what am I going to write about today? You can't do that. You got to be ready.
That's right.
So when that time comes, you can just sit down and get it on paper. And that way you don't waste that time. You've already spent your time thinking and getting your ideas going. Outlining is so important because it's like a roadmap. So if you've got your outline in your head, the first thing you can do when you have time to sit down is to write that out and put it right above your computer. So you don't even have to think the next step when you're going with your article. You just go right down the line. Some people think it's a little overkill to outline articles, but I really love outlines. And so I love to outline articles. I do my books. My first book had a 35-page outline. Some people think that's a little excessive, but what happened was when I got ready to put the book together, guess what? It was a piece of cake because I had it all outlined. I knew which story was going in which chapter. I had interviewed some people for the book, and so I knew where the interviews went. And so my process of actually writing and assembling was much quicker because of that outline. I have never had one that long since, but I do believe in outlines, and I believe they are very valuable for us.
Okay, that's great. That is great information right there. We're already off and running, having a great time. Linda's already dispensing wisdom. I love the idea of being ready that when you sit down, that you're not pondering when you sit down. You have already pre-pondered. And you sit down to write and capture what has been in your head throughout the day.
Right.
Let me tell you a couple of people who are here. I've lost them already in the scroll. Sherry Hunt, she said she's looking forward to it. She said she went to graduate school with a word processor and thought that she was very high tech. Didn't we all? Gail Arbogast is here. I'm feeling ancient because I started on an actual typewriter. Janet Lane says, I've not seen myself as called by God to be a writer. That's interesting because you've been here so often, Janet. I wrote a book because I felt God leading me to do so, but called as a writer is something for her to meditate on.
Good.
Very interesting, isn't that?
Yes, absolutely.
Angie Mays is here. She said, I have a hard time stopping once I get started. Oh, guilty. My plan is to write before bedtime, so my sleepiness propels my obedience to the typewriter. Susan Neal is here, and a couple of other people whose names have already scrolled past me. I apologize. But, we're glad you're here. We're really glad that you're here. We've got a lot of good stuff. I'm going to give Linda the floor. And let me get the handout for you. Let me get the handout for you and post that in case you don't have it, if you happen not to have it. And this handout is not a fill in the blank kind of a thing. It's something as a resource and a guideline for today's presentation, the masterclass. Is that right, Linda?
Yes, it's really a kind of a worksheet, and I've left space on there so that when we conclude that everybody that's listening can take it and use it as a worksheet as well.
I think it's brilliant. I love it. And when you said that you were going to show us so many different ways, I was like, well, okay, I wonder how many ways. My mind was a complete blank. And you have filled it up just by looking at that workshop, that worksheet. It's already boom, 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 boom. It's like, of course, everything is simple when you know how to do it.
That's right. That's profound. Absolutely. And so if we tell you how to do this and use that worksheet, you're going to be ready to do it.
Oh, can we mention also, right before you take your breath, can we mention also that we welcome your ideas? Linda's going to tell us about that. She's going to give us some information about ideas and where to get them and so forth. And then we want you to now or some other time, preferably wait a minute so I don't lose you in the scroll. We're going to give you an opportunity to enter your ideas, and she's going to help you flesh those out and say, have you considered this? Have you tried that? You might suggest this, so forth. Okay? This is interactive today. This is a brainstorming session.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience, Linda. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to give you some guidelines first as far as where you might look for ideas. Because some of us don't think about it. I was telling you and I were talking earlier, and so many people say, where do you get all these ideas? How can you just think of something on the spur of the moment to write about? Well, you've got to train yourself to do that. It's not something that I think we're born knowing how to do, but we actually have the capability for sure. So you've got to train yourself to look at the world around you, because there are things everywhere around you to write about. There is never going to be a lack of something to write about. for us as writers. But you do have to train yourself not only to look for them, but to make notes at the time to give yourself enough that you can take yourself back to that moment. Because once we get done, y'all are going to have so many things to write about. You're going to have to get your notebook out and list those things so that you don't forget. And I always think, well, I'll never forget this. This is such a great story and there's such a great application. I'll just never forget this. And guess what happens? We get a week out or something like that, and I've already written 5 articles between now and then, and I've worked on a book manuscript, and I've done this and I've done that. I can't think of what it's about. And so I have learned to give myself enough of the story in my notebook. Okay. Or whatever. You don't have to have a notebook. If you're sitting there going, well, I don't have a notebook and I don't even like notebooks. Well, that's okay. Get yourself a file. Make yourself a file on your computer. Whatever your method of filing and saving your ideas, make it something that's easy for you. So whatever it is, just get ready to use it because we're going to talk about that. Probably one of the greatest places that I find for ideas is at home. And some people go, well, my home's not that interesting, this and this and this. Your home is interesting. You may not think it is because you see it every day and you're not used to that. But when I walk into my house even and I look around, I see toys from my grandchildren. So I know that I have subjects I could write about on the grandchildren. I look around and I see collections. I'm somewhat of a collector, and my mother was a collector as well. And each one of those collections has a history behind it and also is very interesting for lots of other reasons. It may connect to a holiday. It may connect to a friend of yours or something in your town. Walk into your home like you're a visitor and look all around. Are there collections? Are there children? Is everything neat and tidy? Okay, how did it get that way? What is your system for tidying up? That would be a whole new article. And that's really big right now because of, is it Marie Kondo that's got everybody downsizing and cleaning out their drawers? That's awesome. But you may have a really good idea for organizing your drawers as well. So look around your home. What is it? Do you like to cook? Is there a way you've organized your spices so you can find them and not let them go out of date or whatever? I don't cook a lot, but look at what there is in your home. And I just have to go out my back door. I mean, we've got chickens, and I'll tell you what, if you don't have anything to write about, get a chicken. Chickens have provided me with so many great ideas. These chickens are just like kids, and they try tricks. They try to get out. They do this, they do that. And there's lots of wonderful spiritual application from my chickens. And so I do a lot of devotions from my chickens. I actually, with one other co-author, did a whole book called Devotions from the Farmhouse. And as it turns out, most of that is about the chickens. But look around and see what there is in your own backyard. What is there in your home? Maybe you have a good idea for organization as far as ideas go. That'd be a great subject for an article because we all need to learn how to do things better, and we all want to learn from each other, and we all have areas of expertise. Now, I do not write about collections and grandchildren and chickens and cooking, and I don't write about all that stuff at the same time. But if I'm ever lacking for something to write about, then I just kind of look around my office and see what is there in here that maybe would be of interest to other writers or to other people who have home offices. Or did I figure out a really good way to make it look neat when everything's hidden under something else? So think about what's in your home. That's where you are. That's the first place that you need to look. And that will give you a lot of writing material. Another great place is relationships, because you've got your relationship with your friends, with your family, your children, your grandchildren, people at church, people on the street, people that you've never met, but you pass by them in the grocery store. They're all around you. Relationships are another great place because we're all dealing with relationships. We all want to know how to make our relationships stronger. And so look at that and see, did you find a way? You and your best friend really wanted to be together maybe for lunch every day. But that was a little obsessive. So did y'all figure out how to make a schedule where it made it work? Or maybe when you made one day a play date with your children? Or maybe you and your husband, you could figure something out that lets you spend lots of time together. And so maybe a plan like that. How do you make the most of your relationship with your best friend? So that might be a good thing to write. But look at your relationships and figure out, okay, is there something special about this relationship that I can write about? And of course, all of the major magazines have what we call evergreen topics, topics that they use over and over and over pretty much every issue. And one of those topics is relationships. So everybody's looking for relationship articles. So you've got one that you could write about, I'm sure. So that's another great thing that you could go to. Another thing that's all around us is the news. Things are going on all around us. It may be locally, it may be nationally, it may be something that affects the family. If you want to write about families and that sort of thing, write about a news item that affects your family. So look at the way that, for instance, several years ago, well, actually I looked this morning. I looked on the news on the computer, and everything that was on one website in the relationship category was love, because it's Valentine's month and that sort of thing. So sometimes the calendar can help you figure out what to write about. This is all about love. It's about husbands and wives and, sisters and brothers. How do you teach your children about Valentine's Day? What was the history of Valentine's Day? How can you make your husband feel special? Where do you put love notes so you'll find them? All this kind of stuff just kind of bounces off from seeing that computer screen that has hearts all over it. I mean, see, you just kind of let your mind do that. And so this month, that is in the news. There's also all the stuff. Always we're going through a new, really negative news time. So if you could find some really positive spin to put on what's going on in the world, that would be really a good thing. I think we're all tired of hearing about things that are negative. So look in the news and see if something will kind of piggyback on that, or that will get your juices, your creative juices flowing. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Now, so I know that we have to submit articles ahead of time and so forth, but so the scenario that something's hot and we want to jump on it, we want to write and send something in really quickly. Is it realistic to think that we might be able to take advantage of that news cycle? Is that realistic?
Absolutely. Now, with calendar items, this was not a surprise that Valentine's Day was going to be this month. So with those kind of things, you need to think in time to submit ahead. Mm-hmm. But with the news, like what's in the newspaper, what's on the news, on TV, and all of that, those are very timely. And that's one of the really good things the internet has done for us, is that it has allowed us to write articles that can be up in an hour if it fits the news thing. Now, most editors, if something happens in the world or in the news, and you send them, which you can do by email now, which is great because that's quicker, they will take something and probably bump it to later, or if yours is really on spot for that timely event. For instance, when 9/11 happened, the first thing I thought about was, how am I going to explain this to my children? And we sat down and we talked about it and what it meant. I thought, well, if I can explain it that well to them, why don't I just send this to Focus on the Family? Because I was doing a lot of writing then. So I sat down and really quickly wrote something. I think I even just titled it, How to Talk to Your Children About 9/11. And was able to send that to the editor just like that. And, he was able to use that either that day or the next day as people began talking about it. But you can't do that if you got to go through the submitting process and all that. So for something that's as timely as that, I would recommend using the email channels. And sometimes that is something that you can do with an editor that you already have a relationship with. Sometimes if you don't know the editor and they get this thing from you and they don't know, sometimes that doesn't work in time. But if you have a relationship with an editor, of a magazine you're already writing for. Look at the timely things especially that are going on around you.
That's great information. Excuse me, because it does seem like it's so easy to miss the boat. But if we've got, everybody has to build up relationships, don't they, Linda? Nobody wakes up one day and has 25 relationships with magazine editors.
Right.
Again, this is one of the ways that we can meet them face to face and start the process of a relationship when we go to a Christian Writers Conference.
Absolutely.
This is why we keep talking about this.
Yes, that's one of the values of that. And the networking that you can do and meeting editors face to face is so valuable, because when you look at their slush pile, if he's got 2 articles and one of them he met you somewhere, probably at a conference, and the other one was just a random person that mailed it in, most of the time I would think they would choose the name they had a face with if the writing is equal.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say you can never get an article published if you don't go a writer's conference. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the relationship helps and the networking is valuable. So another way, sort of like newspapers and things, is magazine articles. Haven't you read an article and you put the magazine down and all of a sudden you thought, well, why didn't they go deeper into this? Or why didn't they cover this part of that subject? You can do that. Let that just make your creative juices go and let you see where it's going to take you. After you read an article, that doesn't have to be the end of it. It may be the beginning for you. Another thing is, if one magazine has an article on a subject, sometimes if it's a big subject, every magazine wants one. So if you liked the subject, don't shy away from it. Just don't copy what that person did, but come up with your own outline and your own way of saying that. So you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. You're not stealing somebody's work because you're not going to copy their writing. You're just going to start over with a similar idea of your own. It'd have to be different because you're going to learn to tailor your writing to different magazines, and they all have their own voice. So it wouldn't be probably a fit for every magazine in the world if you just read one. So let magazines you read just kind of spark ideas and your creativity. Sermons you listen to, something you listen to on I can't tell you how many articles I have that started off on sermon bulletins, on church bulletins, because for some reason, when my pastor starts talking, and I love him and he says wonderful things all the time, my brain starts going and I'm making a list almost every Sunday of things that I could write about that he has brought up for one reason or another. So, and he doesn't mind that. He's okay with that. So that's good. But when you get in a situation where you feel like your creativity is just going, don't try to squelch it and think, well, I'm in church, I can't possibly do that. Write it down. And then it's out of your mind. You can listen to the rest of the sermon without being so distracted. So that's a really good place as well. TV sometimes spurs things to us. If you listen to maybe talk shows and their issues that they talk about, you might want to grab an idea from there. Or you see something, maybe even in a kind of like one of these reality shows, and you go, that would be really interesting to find out how this person did this or something like that. So don't ever push an idea aside and think you can't do it. So those are some other places as well. I think just like home, school, work, church, all of those places have ideas for you, and they're just waiting to be discovered. So don't think, well, I'm just going to go to church, or I'm just going to go to school and all day long I'll be sitting there. That's not the case at all. Let your mind absorb what you're learning, then see how it can take it creatively into another method or another mode of communicating it to other people through a magazine article.
I love this. You're making it sound like our daily environment, excuse me, has fruit just for the picking right there.
That's right.
One there and one there and one there. And go to another room, you got more. And open up your computer and you got more. Watch the television, you got more. Interact with your family and your neighbors, you got more. Church. You're really opening up our minds, Linda. Thank you.
If you don't pick it, somebody else is going to probably. So if you have a good idea, jump on it at the time. Another thing that kind of goes back to our relationships sometimes, but you may have overcome something. It might be within a rape relationship. It might be a health issue. It might be just how to do something that was out of your expertise. Everything like that is a story. How do you do that? How do you overcome it? And how-to articles like that are extremely popular. And we're just giving people usually kind of a step-by-step how to do that, mixed in with a little bit of your personal experience. And so it's always encouraging to them, to your readers, to say, well, if she did this, I can do it too. So that's a form of even encouraging your readers just by sharing how you have overcome something. So that, or even just like a straight personal experience story without like all the how-to stuff in it. Could be yours or it could be someone else's that you have interviewed. So both of those are ways that you can do that. Holidays, like we were talking about Valentine's Day, we know they come every year. So let's think about things we could write about. Maybe you don't have any ideas for Valentine's. Well, pay attention this Valentine's Day. It's just around the corner. Look at how people are interacting. What are some of the neat ideas you've seen for Valentine gifts? What have you seen a mom do with her children's lunchbox? Did the kid open the lunchbox at school and it was full of hearts or something like that? You know, what have you seen that might be a really good article, but it's too late this year. So work on that between now and next year. Same way with every holiday there is. I always tell my writing group in December, I said, okay, it's Christmas. You got to get your notebooks out and get these ideas down as you're watching what goes on in your family. Family dynamics during a holiday would be a great article if you have some solutions. If you don't have solutions, you may want to wait to write that one, but all of those things enter into it. That's kind of a really crash course as far as ideas go. I want to talk about how to take an idea, though, and kind of flesh it out a little bit, and how to reuse and reuse. There's no point in doing all your research and not using it and reusing it to get paid for other articles, because reprints, I mean, it's cool when you can send a reprint to 5 different places and get paid all over again for not even making it one change. Everything is the same when it's a reprint. There's a difference in reprints and rewrites, but a reprint, we're talking about an article that was published in a magazine that you can offer to another magazine as a reprint. And you can do that by copying that article and copying the cover of the magazine, and that's all you have to send so you don't have to do anything else to your article, is what I'm saying.
Will you tell us that again? What do you have to send?
You have to send your article as just exactly as it was, and then the cover of the magazine so they can see when it came out and all that stuff. You can just copy that on your copy machine.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be color or anything. But that gives them an idea of where it was in the circulation, the readers, and all of that sort of thing. And that is a reprint. And there are tons. For instance, if you write on, say, parenting, and you've had a really good article in Focus on the Family, say, about parenting, there are also almost every state, if not every state, has their own parenting magazine. And so you could take that after it was in Focus, send it to the Mississippi parent, the Atlanta parent, the Georgia parent, the Michigan parent. I mean, look in your writer's market guide and see what else is under your subject. But one article could generate a good amount of money for you without you doing the work but one time. So that's what your reprints are.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Good. We're not going to get into rewrites right now because that's a different subject.
I can't put my hands on my Christian Writers Market Guide. Would someone watching get that link from Amazon, please, and post it for us? I thought I had it right here and I can't find it. That's valuable for people who aren't familiar with it.
I had mine. I just got my new one, but this is my old one. It's just sitting beside me.
Here we go. And it's very similar. The new one's green. So same thing.
Green. It's a gold mine, though. If you are starting writing and can only afford one book, let it be that one. For sure.
Okay.
Now, the handout is available, right? Everybody can get the handout.
Put the link. I put the link in the comments if you don't already have it.
Okay, good. I'd like to take an idea and kind of show you how we can flesh this out. And let everybody who's listening be thinking, because I'd like to, in just a minute, take your idea.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did at one point, I tried to find maybe a holiday or an anniversary or of something. Because when you write to an editor and you say, this is the anniversary of the founding of the stock market.
Okay.
They probably didn't know that. And they are probably not going to change their whole issue to be about the stock market. But you know what that says to them? That you are aware, you are watching, you know what's going on. And so when I look at, say, I'm going to use that one as an example since I said that. You look at the founding of the stock market, I think was in May, and I don't remember the year. But all right, if you look at your chart that your handout, my general idea would be investing your money, probably. Now, one angle would be for us to write about the history of the stock market, because some people would be interested in that. And there's some publication would be interested in that. But another angle might be, why is it important to invest your money? And that would give you reasons that you want to do that. You might get more focused on that when you might go to something like the importance of saving for retirement. Well, see, what has that done for you? Okay, that has given us another little shoot on this this idea. You can take our idea here, maybe in the middle, and you've got all these spokes, but all of a sudden we're into retirement. So before you even get to the bottom of that chart, what you may do is you may say, oh, the importance of saving for retirement. And I can think of 50 great places for retired people to vacation. And how do they do this? It kind of gets your brain going on that tangent. Well, then you might also go back to your finance agent and think about 15 ways to make sure your nest egg would grow. And, you might talk to a financial planner. You might interview a stockbroker or somebody like that who can give you good information for that article. But then you might take a whole different a whole different angle for that, and you might write about newlyweds, how to save when you don't have much money, or 25 safe, low-risk stocks or something like that, which I would have to interview someone for that as well because I don't have that knowledge. But you might take a humorous angle. You might write something like hot dogs and pork and beans, low-cost meals for penny pinching days, or something like that. That gives you a narrow funnel there. You're getting to a different subject area, and you may want to kind of go off on that tangent about low-cost meals. You could write a whole article about that, not just about saving the money aspect, but you might do low-cost recipes or newlywed recipes or something like that. You might get serious again and write an article about tithing. What is it what's the history of tithing? Why does God tell us to give him back a tenth? You could write several great articles about that as well. A man might, for a men's magazine, you might think about writing something like how to provide for your family after you're gone. That would kind of give him some security in feeling like he had done all he can before he passed away. You might look at the women's angle. If she's left with all her finances and her husband has always done it, you might do an article on finding a trustworthy financial advisor. How do you find someone who will be honest and truthful and all that? We hope they all would, but what are the things you need to look for when you're finding a financial advisor? So that would be another angle that you could do with this. And then you could even write one for a children's magazine. How do you teach your children how to save? That would be like a parent's magazine, but you might write one for the children, fun ways to save your money, or how to put money in your piggy bank, or something like that. It might even be like a read to them story about saving money and why it's important. So you've got all those. See, we just had one idea. We had the history of the stock market anniversary, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm. I got it. I've written it all down.
So when you send your query letter to your editor, you mention that the stock market anniversary is coming up and that you thought perhaps they would like a financial related article. And so that gives you a little bit of an extra boost, I think, when the editor sees that you've been doing your homework on that. Now, I think I also put a spot where you could list some periodicals and other things that might be interested in what you have to say. I mean, they're financial things, but for finances is one of the things that is another evergreen subject. So almost, if you look at you go to the grocery store and you stand there waiting your turn and you're looking at all the books and reading all the titles on the magazines, they're pretty consistent as far as having something about finances, something about relationships, something about health. Several of these types of subjects are totally evergreen, and they have them all the time there. Mm-hmm. So that's a good place for you to look while you're standing there at the grocery store. Do your research on your magazines. Look and see what is on the front of those and what kind of articles they're buying. That gives you a way just to know what that is. The cover lines will tell you. You don't even have, the cover lines are those big lines on the front. You don't even have to do anything or to know what's inside. You can read that right off the front.
Second. I'm not sure. I always have multiple magazines laying around.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't see one this very second. So where would we go and look at the cover line? Oh, you have one. You're so smart.
Yes, I have several here. I was going to show them later, but I'll show them now. See, these are cover lines. All these things are telling you some of the subjects that are in the magazine.
Oh, I see. Okay, what we might call a bullet point is a cover line in this terminology.
We're going to call it a cover line. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So you don't even have to look in it to find that some of these are in there. In fact, this one, they're on the money thing. 8 ways to make money from your website for Writer's Digest. So, those cover lines are important for us to know what's in there.
Just take a breath for a minute. Let me brag on you. We want you to come and live with us, all of us. We each want you to come and live with us. This is it's so simple and yet so far-reaching. I see what you're saying now in a way that I got it conceptually before, but now I see it practically play out, and it's so wonderful. And we still would have to do the research to make sure that it fits the particular magazine or online magazine or offline. Go by the guidelines, the deadline, blah blah blah. We have to do all that, but before we do any of that, we got to have an idea.
Right. That's right.
This is good. This is really, really good.
Good. I would love to does anybody in the chat room there have an idea we could apply this to?
So you're looking for a broad topic.
For a broad subject. Like if you're thinking about writing an article on three-legged long-haired dachshunds, that's not a good place to start. Let's take a general idea, which would be dogs in that case. Okay. Just a general idea. Most people, if they have a platform, they can tell you what they write about a lot. If you don't have a platform, don't worry about it. Just what is it that you write a lot about?
And then we'll go down sort of the worksheet.
Yeah, we're going to brainstorm with this. So whoever will give us their idea is going to get some really good brainstorming, in other words.
Okay. Come on now, ladies. This is too good an opportunity to pass up. Okay. Let me capture these with a screenshot before I lose them. Excuse me. Janelle Wood says, I love all this practical advice. And then she's telling us a story that I won't take time to read, but she's loving it. Angie Mays says PTSD. We've got several. Let me give you a couple to choose from. PTSD, prayer, do some foods cause cancer, surrender, creativity, chronic pain. That'll give us a good start.
Okay, how many hours can we have?
I'm here.
Get all these in. But let me give you an example from the PTSD one either. That is not your broad category. The broader category of that would be, I don't know if that's considered mental illness, mental disorder, mental problems. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the category would be. whatever that category would be, you would have probably PTSD in that category, but you would also have a lot of other things that were similar. I don't know if bipolar disorder would go into that, but a lot of mental disorders of some sort. Now, but with the PTSD, you've got just a wide open market to write about that, and most people think that's military. So you could go a lot of places with the military part of it.
Okay.
But you also, there are people suffering from PTSD today who've never had on a uniform. They experienced something in their lives that has caused them to experience the PTSD. And so you might go in that direction. You know, what can cause it? All the different things like that. Children, some children have PTSD from various things. I know of several who are suffering from that exact thing, and it's not from being in the military. It is from some event, some life event that happened. And it's very sad that they're having to deal with that right now as children, but they are. So I think you could even go back farther than your PTSD to a broader category. And I would start, if that's what you're writing about, PTSD, I would start there. I don't know who said that, and I don't have the knowledge of if it's like a military cause thing or if it's something else. But either way, that is a huge subject for today. And PTSD, not only, we can use our chart and go, you know, we can go one angle, what is it, and how does that affect the person who is experiencing that? But you go further down the page, and I think you become more focused. You can even say PTSD in the family. Or PTSD is not just an individual thing, because I am sure that everybody in the family of someone who has that is suffering in their own way from that. They don't maybe have it, but they're suffering as a result of it. And so, you know, you could go down the line and come up with subjects such as that. And then also, I think a very, very important part of something like that subject is to move down to an angle where you can help people understand it and understand how to react to it if they're around it. Just because, you know, people have PTSD, it's like anything else. Any other kind of illness or some kind of life event, you know, cancer, sickness, whatever, people sometimes don't know what to say or how to act. And so I think anytime you have something like that, I think it's really valuable if you can get the information out to people. How do you react to someone who has PTSD? Do you talk to them about it? Do you not mention it? Are there triggers you should never say? You know, those kinds of things. So I think that's a great subject that you can use the same chart and go pretty crazy with articles that kind of connect to that. And then, you know, part of what you could do with something like that is to interview someone who has it and get their story and then offer that as a sidebar with your magazine article. Now, we don't have time to go into detail about that, but the sidebars are the little boxes that you see on the pages of magazine articles. Sometimes they actually will put an entire testimony or another personal experience in those boxes. Usually they're smaller, but occasionally they will even do a pretty big one to go along with an article. The personal experience may be your article for PTSD, and then your information about PTSD could be your sidebar. The purpose of the sidebar is for you to not intrude into the flow of your article. If you're just going all along and you're writing about your personal experience with PTSD, and by the way, and then you insert this little paragraph, and you start on a tangent about, oh, by the way, these are the 10 warning signs, or this is what you look for. You have totally gotten that person away from their absorption in your story. So that would go in a sidebar. So that would be, I think, very, very helpful. Read me another one of yours. The thing that creativity. Oh man, yeah. We could just take what we're talking about today and just put it. There's so many things to do with creativity. You know, what is it that makes you feel creative. Where is your creative spot? Where do you feel like you become creative? For some of us, it's outdoors. For some of us, it's lying in the bed all by ourselves with the quiet. And for others of us, it's something else. You know, a lot of people I know talk about how creative they are in the shower. So pick your spot and see what works for you. But the creativity can go forms of creativity. You could talk about books and speaking and dance and interpretive movement and all these kind of things would give you another area in the creativity camp to write about.
And that would just be like subcategories, and you could break them down.
Exactly.
Boom, 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 boom. You could end up with 60 or 100 ideas.
Yes. See how fun and easy this is?
I love it!
So that's kind of the way that goes for that. But I'd love to just really quickly, and I hate that we have to do it quickly, but I'd love to really just share a couple of different types of articles that as people get their ideas kind of flowing, that they might actually be able to write several articles from what they're doing. Okay. Of course, one of them that we talk about and see all the time, I have this magazine and this magazine. A profile article, usually a lot of magazines you see someone on the front, a person, an individual. And so there's probably a story in there in the magazine about that individual. Mm-hmm. Those are called profile articles. Okay. They're very easy because you go interview the person and you're writing their story. So you don't have to sit there and think up anything. You just take the material and that's in there for their story and write it up. Sometimes you do it as told to, which means that you would write it as it was being told to you. Sometimes it's by the author and you would write it as a third person, you're writing it about that person. But the majority of them are done in the first person as articles. Sometimes you can do them Q&A, and I ask the question and then they give the answer. So that is what your profile article is. Your interview article would be one that you interviewed someone, and if you look here again while you're waiting in the grocery store, most of those magazines have people on them, mm-hmm. a person that has been interviewed inside. So there's a need for that. It's the mainstay of a lot of magazines is that profile article. Okay. So don't forget that. And sometimes you have to get a little bit in with that magazine before they'll give you the profile or the feature magazine or the feature articles, but that can be done, and it's a great fun thing to do. Sometimes they're done so much that, like Simone Biles is on the picture in front of this. I don't know a lot about her, but I know enough to know that there are all kind of subjects you might write about for her. Her gymnastic ability, of course, but we know she was raised by her grandparents. That's a hot topic these days, is grandparents who are going the second round now, raising their grandchildren. So that sort of thing is very helpful.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
If we interview someone, let's take Simone, for example.
Okay.
So we have one interview, and is it appropriate and ethical to then take the nucleus of that and use it for multiple other articles, just like we're talking about here, about the grandparent angle and growing up with a troubled child maybe, or whatever the case may be?
Yes, absolutely.
Do we have to get her permission every time with every...
Well, I would let her know my intent. Once we finished, I would thank her and I would say, there's way too much material here for just one article. Would it be all right and I would probably have something in mind. If you have not sold the article yet, you need to tell them what your intent is to do with the material. So,
that's fair.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. Okay. We talked about calendar articles. Figure out how what you want to write fits into the calendar. It might be every month there's something. I mean, you got January, the first of the year, you got renewal and all that. February, you've got love, Valentine's, relationships, all of that kind of stuff. March, it just goes on and on. Every month has something. So watch for what is going on in your area. Maybe look at billboards if they're doing something related to the season. I one time saw a billboard for the kudzu festival because it was the spring and we have lots of kudzu where I live, and they have a festival and people made clothes out of kudzu. They make baskets, they make jelly, they make all of this stuff. And I wrote 3 or 4 articles before I was done about kudzu. And the history of it is pretty fascinating. You know, it was supposed to be stop erosion, and it did that, but it sure took over in the process. So look at what's going on around you, and it may be calendar related, it may not. The roundup is another kind, and this is really fun. For instance, since we've kind of gotten on the Simone Biles thing, you may want to do a roundup about how athletes cope with so much travel. And you might get 3, 4, 5 athletes who are on the road traveling and competing and ask them how they cope with that. You would not use a whole lot. You'd probably use just a few paragraphs from each one. And you put them together. You write the beginning of your article. You write the ending for your article, which is also just probably a paragraph or 2. And you've got a great article that people are really interested in. That's another thing. Watch your billboards not only for calendar things, but look at things that are going on that involve people in your community, because they don't always have a lot of extra stuff to do. They may be coming to speak, but they may be coming in earlier in the day, and you can get an interview with them before they go speak or after they speak. Or one of the most interesting ones I ever did, I saw where this reformed, I guess is the right word, wrestler was coming to our area. He was one of the most dreaded wrestlers in the WWW for years, and then he became a Christian, and so he was going around speaking to high schools and stuff. And so I called his publicist and asked if I could interview him, and oh yeah, he'd be glad to do that. And that was just really interesting, you know, to hear. But I try to stay kind of focused on what's coming to my area for whatever reason. Banquets a lot of times bring big speakers in, and they don't always know what to do with them apart from the time they're speaking. So watch billboards, watch your church calendars, newspapers, all that kind of stuff.
And then what do you do with those articles? Since it's a local environment, what do you do with those? You just contact the newspaper and so forth, or does it go broader afield?
You can do either way, and you need to kind of feel which way it should go. With the wrestler, I kind of focused on the local high school aspect of it and him talking with them. Leah Amico, she's a softball gold medalist in the Olympics, and she came to speak to our FCA, and I contacted her, and I ended up sending that to Focus on the Family. I had contacted them before, so if you know what you're going to do with it, it's nice to be able to tell them. And that way they know kind of where, and always send them a thank you note, always send them a copy of the article. Okay. and all of that sort of thing. But keep your eyes open and ears open, and get your friends to help you watch out and all of that stuff, so that you can do these profile articles, which you don't have to go anywhere. See, they just come to you.
Is it acceptable to say, I plan to submit this to XYZ?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. But it just, it's funny how once people hear that you want to do this and you're writing, probably the most interesting lead I got on an article was from my washing machine man. He was under the washing machine. He says, hey, have you ever interviewed that guy out in Cowpens? And I was like, Cowpens? He said, yeah, I fixed his daughter's washing machine the other day. He wrote a lot of those Gaither songs that they sing. And I was like, no, I didn't know he was here. And so I called his daughter. You know, he was very proper about it. He said, I'll talk to his daughter and have her call you, and or ask her if you can call her. And so I interviewed him, and that was really, really fun. You know, and he was right here in my backyard. So there are people that you find that are here around you, wherever you live, that if you start looking for them, you may find some really interesting folks. So I hate that we're getting close on time, but I want to give you a couple more, if I may.
Let me just ask everybody if they can. We try to honor your time, but these are so unique, such unique, isolated opportunities. Can you wait a little while? Can you hang over with us for another 10 or 15 minutes everybody, will you give us a thumbs up? You're not going to hurt our feelings. And we could just go ahead. If you need to leave, you go leave. We'll just have a party. You can come back and join us when it's convenient to you.
That works, doesn't it?
Thank you, Linda.
The thing about all these different types of articles, once you get your stuff for one, then you have got the research, you have got the information. I did an article not too long ago for Home Life. They had called and asked if I would do an article on family reunions. And I said, sure, it's a quick turnaround, but they wanted 2,000 words. And I thought, man, that's long for an article these days. And so I thought, surely I can find enough to do that. Well, in the end, I had so much material. I not only did their article, I did one on games for children to play at family reunions. I did on how to compile information about your family that you can present like as in a book or something at family reunions. I did icebreakers at family reunions. You know, that just became, while I had all that information, a great thing to do. So use and reuse your stuff. I can't say that enough because it really does make a difference. There's also, we talked about, maybe when we were talking about overcoming, we talked a little bit about how-tos. How-tos are great because everybody wants to keep learning something. Everybody wants to know how to do things they don't know how to do. There are two types of general how-to articles. One is the tangible how-to, and that's going to tell you how do you do something.
A task.
Probably like a step-by-step kind of thing. You know, number 1, number 2, number 3. And make sure that you include every step. Even if you know how to do something, then if you're going to tell them how to boil rice, start with getting out the pot and what size. You know, don't put your rice in the water, because some people don't cook enough to know that. And so always try out what you're doing step by step. Let somebody who doesn't know how to do it to make sure you haven't left out a step. One snow day, I got an assignment from a Family Fun magazine, and they wanted me to tell them how to do paper mache masks. Well, I happened to have my house full of children that day because they were playing in the snow, all that kind of stuff. And they got done and came in. They were cold, and I said, have I got the greatest thing for y'all to try? And I put them around my dining room table. I said, we're going to make paper mache masks. Now, here's yours. You do yours out of tin foil with this and this. Here's yours. You're going to take newspapers with yours and make it on this. You know, every way they would do it, I thought I put around that table. And so I did my research right there on snow day. So that was kind of fun. And that they told us, you know, the article in the magazine was how to make a paper mache mask. The intangible how-tos has to do not with something you make and can hold, but more like, you know, how to get over depression, or, you know, how to deal with relationships. Those sorts of things you really can't measure whether they're successful or not, at least not right away. And so those are your intangible how-tos, which is the other part. It might be, you always want to keep in mind you're wanting to teach your reader with a how-to, that you want to show them how to do something new, whether it's tangible or intangible. It may be how to deal with the relationship, or it may be how to make a paper mache mask. So,
may I make a suggestion? And I hesitate to, because you're so far further along than I am. But what you're saying is prompting me to remember something. On the intangible, we could give them one small task to change something, and they get a win. And it might be the changing in their thinking, not changing in their curtains. But then they feel that they have not only absorbed the information that you've given them, but they're further along because you gave them one small thing to do that they were very capable of doing, even if they were at their lowest point, for example, or the least knowledgeable. And
right.
Then they get what's called a win, and they like you even better.
That's a great idea. That's absolutely a great idea. Yes. Another type we might move on to are the issue or articles. Now, with an issue, that might be something that you pulled out of the news. Most likely it's something that everybody knows about. It could be political. It could be personal, that you're trying to help people deal with something. But the main thing about an issue article is that you need to show both sides to the issue. You are not, if you're going to make it your opinion, it becomes an op-ed, which is in the in the newspaper, the page that has your opinion on it, the opinion editorials.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that would belong if you're only going to give your opinion. So if you're going to do an issue article, you've got to be fair, and you've got to give both sides their say. And sometimes that's not easy if you really feel strongly about the issue. If you really feel strongly about it, you may want to pick something else if it's going to be hard for you to take the other side and be fair about it. You just want it balanced. You don't want it. This is not a chance for you to get on your soapbox. So that's what the issue is. And devotional articles are a good place for a lot of us to start because they're short. They are something that allows us to share our faith, which is personal, but it's also something that we know about. We know what our faith is, how we grew it, how we are growing, and all of that. So with a devotional article, and with an article, there's two kinds of devotions. There's the little books that you get sometimes that have the small 150, 250 words as a devotional. But there's also a devotional article. And that would be, I see them a lot like in Woman's Day or Family Circle, where they have taken a subject. There's one issue. It's not, there's usually, or could be, some scripture in it. They mention God, but they don't like just God, 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 the whole article. But they are taking something and showing us how their faith impacted it. And that becomes a devotional article. And sometimes it actually can leave them with a challenge or some way to do something better as well. So you've got your little devotionals and your devotional articles, which are more like a full-size article.
Okay.
So if you want to write a devotional article, just make sure, especially if it's a secular magazine, make sure they do that. Study your magazine and make sure that they have devotional articles in there. So those are the main types, but you can kind of combine those. You know, if you have a holiday article, you might do a celebrity holiday roundup article or something like that. Okay. So you can actually combine those types of articles if you want to into more than one as well. So I think this is a good place for us to stop here. If you have any questions on your screen that we need to address, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay. Janelle Wood is wondering, do you ever feel like you're repeating yourself when you write about the same topic in different arenas? What is some advice to avoid repeating yourself all the time? Or is it okay to do that? But the end user isn't aware that you're repeating yourself, right?
Well, if you're doing it for different markets, you're not going to repeat yourself in the same words. So you're going to be using different words. And if you're writing about something that is information or a personal experience or anything else, really, the information or the experience doesn't change. The way you write about it will change. You cannot take an article and write the same arrangement of words and sell it to somebody else as a new article anyway. So that would end up being a reprint, and you wouldn't have to do any more writing. You just offer it as a reprint. But I think that's answering her question. You know, sometimes I think her question was, do you get bored too? I don't know. It's always a challenge to write the same thing again in a new way. I kind of look at it that way and see if you can make it something even better. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's hard because we try to do our best the first time. Mm-hmm. But honestly, there have been times when my computer has taken something and just lost it. And I think, I just did that and it was so good, you know? And then when I went back and did it again, it really ended up even better. So I really don't think I could say that I get bored doing that. I like to meet a challenge of finding new places to do it and new angles to write about so that I'm not bored.
Oh, I see. And and this is so helpful. Mine's filled out and it will be filled out again and again and again. This is so helpful. Thank you.
I'm so glad.
Especially for those of us who are creatives, we have a hard time containing our ideas and putting them into a useful format. They're just floating around in our head all the time, 50 voices, 150 voices talking to us. But put them on a piece of paper and then they'll quieten down, won't they?
That's right. That's right. And I have found it really helpful to have the ideas written down. I write 4 different columns every month for various magazines or whatever. And when I get ready to write, generally I'll go look at my idea file and I'll go, oh, I had forgotten about that because I wrote that down. So I'll usually always have something I can pick for. They're on different subjects. Some of the columns are on writing subjects. Some of them are on parenting. And some of them are personalities. So I've got lots of different variations of topics that I can do that on, but it really helps me just to have that idea file and to go to that and just look down the list and pick something. And if it didn't interest me when I put it on the list as much as some of them I just wrote down because I knew they would work. And I wasn't like, oh, I got to hurry up and write about this, and then, but 6 months later, when I looked at them on the list, I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And it kind of excites me all over again. So idea lists are just really, really good.
Viewers, we talked about a swipe file, SWIP as in Paul, file, E. earlier in the segment, and that's where we collect headlines that we see or taglines that get our attention so that we can use those as inspiration for our own, never copying and pasting. And what you're talking about is similar but different, where we've got a file just for ideas. And in this case, we're creating the idea. We got a quote, an idea popped into our head, all the different ways that you've already mentioned, and we get to create.
That's right.
How to use it, who might be interested in it, which angles, plural, we could explore. How big was your biggest idea tree? Was it just like all over the page, hundreds of ideas?
Yeah, it's kind of easy to do that, and sometimes I do them with this chart. Sometimes I start with, like a ball in the middle and it has all these spokes, and then every ball out there has all these spokes, and that's kind of fun too, because when you go back to even that, and I save it every time I do that, because you go back and look at that chart where you've made it just looks like a bunch of DNA molecules or something on the page, but every little ball there would be a different topic, and you could write it for a different magazine.
Love it, love it, love it. We are going to, excuse me, everybody's saying thank you. They love it. It was so valuable. And of course, it's true. It's very, very true. Dana Delringer, thank you for challenging the creative juices, Linda. Barb Haley said that lots of thank yous. Barb Haley said, in all caps, I'm going to rewatch this and take copious notes. It was just fantastic. I agree. We just have a minute. Let's quickly talk about the conference, because we always try to end with that. So let me share that. We won't go into a lot of detail, viewers, but we can't miss a chance to talk about a conference. And this is Linda's. She's hosting this, and it's coming up right at the beginning of March. What do you want to tell us about it, Linda?
I would just like to personally invite everybody who's listening to come and be a part of it. We have a wonderful fellowship. The spirit of the conference is just nothing but encouragement. And we want to encourage you wherever you are in your writing journey. It's not too late to sign up. We have a contest going on as well. If you have a book or an article that has already been printed, we would love for you to enter that contest. It closes this weekend, but we would just love that. Our contest funds go to scholarships, pure and simple. There's nothing else that we use them for. So mainly, I'd just like to invite you to be there and to be a part of that. It's at fbs.org/writers. You just showed them the website.
Yes. Let me do that again. I did. I'll do it back. So here we go. Here is the... Okay. That is in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Spartanburg, South Carolina. If they have any questions, they can email me.
And the cost is ridiculously reasonable. The early bird just expired, but $145. Come on, too easy. 2
days. And we'll have faculty there that are publishers, editors, professional writers, and all of them are there to help you. They're here, they're there. I have selected them individually, and one of the things that is really important to me is that my faculty has the servant heart, and that they are not coming for any kind of self-serving anything. They are coming because they love helping writers, and so we hope we'll get lots of writers there to help.
May it be so. May it be so, Father. And this is not your first conference. This is you're moving on this. This is growing.
Oh, it is. It is. It's growing, and that's exciting. And we've got so many people who want to be there, faculty-wise too. And excuse me, we have over 24 faculty people who are there, and it's just an amazing time of fellowship. We do fun things too. I don't know of any other conference that does lightning learning. I made it up, so I guess not. But it's kind of like speed dating. And, after lunch on Saturday, everybody gets kind of draggy. And I didn't like that when we first started doing this conference years ago. And I thought, well, we can do something to keep them awake. Well, lightning learning is kind of like speed dating. Everybody starts out after lunch. You go to one spot, and there are about 5 people at each table with one faculty member. And you stay there about 4 minutes. And the faculty member tells you their best writing tip, then somebody blows a whistle, and everybody gets up, moves to the next table, and gets the best writing tip from that faculty. So you just constantly move it. It's fun. People are laughing, and I just love doing that because it's a fun way to get a lot of information and really get to know some people, when you're kind of going along the hall with these people trying to find your next spot. It's bonding.
And a lot of people are, a lot of writers are introverts, so it gives you an opportunity without a big commitment.
Yes.
You can engage a little bit and then back off. Yes. You're safe. This is a safe environment.
And I understand that because I'm a really big introvert, and that's why it's so weird that I have to figure out all these things for people to do that aren't at all things that introverts like. But it's fun.
We have, it's a total understatement to say that we have enjoyed this immensely, Linda.
Good. So glad.
We appreciate you sharing your expertise. You make it seem so easy, but I know that you started out like we're starting out, and the Lord helped you develop that, and you're now teaching it to somebody else. That's the way it works, isn't it?
That's right. Pass it on. Pay it forward.
Thank you, viewers, for being here with us. We so appreciate you being here, whether you're watching the live or the replay. Maybe you're watching the replay again and again. Great. You're perfectly welcome to do that. This has been episode number 232, Where to Get Article Ideas and What to Do with It. Right here. Right here's your answer. With author and conference director Linda Gilden. Tomorrow, author, speaker, and former TV show host Robin Bertram joins us to help us get the most out of Facebook. Robin's teaching is so engaging and so thorough. You're going to fall in love with her right at the very beginning, and you're going to learn a lot about Facebook and how to grow your audience using Facebook. She has over 76,000 followers. We're not going to reach that goal next week, but we can learn things from her that will set the tone for continued growth. We're here every weekday at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. The summit's going on right now. This is the bonus week, as I've mentioned before. Next week, the summit will be over, and we'll return to our regular programming. And what is that? Interviews and tutorials by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists to help you learn the professional craft of writing and online marketing so that you can reach your ideal target market online, those people whom you will never meet in real life, who are so very hungry for the message that God has entrusted to you and that you are gifted to deliver so that their lives can be changed, and in sometimes their eternities are changed. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you tomorrow.